Hi, and welcome back to Dan of the Red Hand. Today we're going to cover the Easter eggs that I found in the Amazon Wheel of Time series, episode 6, The Flame of Valon. And Blood and Bloody Ashes, were there a lot of Easter eggs. Before I do, as many of these Easter eggs are nods to the books or plot lines in the books, I would like to say that this is the spoiler warning for the entire book series up until include A New Spring, the prequel novel. If you're still good on watching the video, stick around. Here we go. So we'll start with the cold open, where we see bamboo, reed houses, rice fields, and the river delta. This is firmly placing Tyr in a climate very similar to that of Southeast Asia. Additionally, you notice that while Siuan's father is fishing with a cast net, he also has fish traps and potentially even crab traps off the side, showing that they're not just fishing actively, they're also passively fishing. When Siuan channels, she's unraveling a knot, which is a nod to the book series where we start to see that weaves can be unraveled by channelers. Additionally, her father hears a dog barking in the distance, which is what alerts him to wonder if anybody saw. In multiple shots here, you can actually see the seated here in the background, a wonderful little detail that I like. When she's preparing to leave, Siuan is actually using a cast net as a travel pack before she leaves. Inside of that, you can see a water skin and dried fish, things that she will definitely need to survive on the journey, a small detail that I really appreciate. Finally, as she's leaving, you see her pushing herself along with a bamboo pole. While not explicitly a true Easter egg, I think this might actually be a little bit of a nod to Julian Sandar, who we meet in later books in Tyr. Now let's get to the initial trial. I'm not going to really cover any Logain stuff here because there's not a lot there. However, Moraine's look and Leandrin's look are two things I have to mention. Moraine's finally wearing her Cassiera. We finally get to see her wearing it and looking like Moraine Sedai from the books, as well as Leandrin is wearing her braids down, as long braids, something also noted in the books. As you look at the floor, you'll notice there is colored tiles around all of them, and there is one for each of the 7 Ajas: white, gray, green, brown, red, blue, and yellow. If you notice, there is no seat for the Keeper of the Chronicles, Lyanna, because she wouldn't have one. They keep her standing just like she does in the books. Additionally, you notice she's not taking place in the conversations because that's the role of the keeper in the books. In this scene, we get our look at the Amarylline seat, Siuan Sanche. And if the tattoos on her collar aren't enough to tell you this is the little girl we saw in the cold opening, look at the jewelry in her hair. It is very, very reminiscent and has a lot of nautical themes in it. Additionally, if you look at the collar that she's wearing, it has a stripe for each one of the 7 Ajas, a clear nod to the Amarylline stole in the books. Additionally, going back to those colored tiles, you'll notice it has a very familiar braid in the tile pattern. It's the same braid that we saw connecting the Aes Sedai in the intro sequence, and we actually see it above the Amarylline's head on the Amarylline seat. When everyone bows as the Amarylline enters, you'll notice that everyone has their own way of bowing, but Leandrin's is very stiff, her arms at her side, and her fists are clenched, showing that she does not want to be there. She doesn't really respect the Amarylline's authority and is not going to be submissive. Each Aja is represented there, and each one has 3 sisters sitting, except for the green. They have one sister missing, Karini. After having Logain taken out, she says the rest of you may depart in the light, basically sealing the rest of this trial to the hall. In this scene, we hear the Amarylline say to Leandrin, "You attained the shawl some time ago." The key word there being shawl, a clear nod to the Aes Sedai shawls in the books. Now we cut to seeing Moraine drinking tea. Drinking tea, something she does in the books, not truly an Easter egg. What is, or at least a small detail that you might have missed, is this is actually upstairs in the same building that we saw Padden Fane in the previous episode. As she's sitting there, she clearly waits for Nynaeve Loial to leave before going to see Mat. On their way, you realize this is right across the street from the Light's Blessing, where in front of it you see a barber stall. I did kind of notice this in the previous episode, but it's interesting that you get a nice view of it now. As they enter the room, even Rand is surprised and says, "Oh, Nynaeve, you're back already, did you?" And then he realizes it's Moraine, showing that Nynaeve had not been gone very long before they arrived. Additionally, notice that Rand is still stowing his weapons when he's not wearing them, but he is stowing them near the head of his bed, not near the foot. After that run-in with Dana, he learned a little something. Conversely, Mat's still sleeping with the dagger. After separating Mat from the dagger's corruption, Moraine and Rand have a conversation outside. During this, she tells him that she needs to keep a close eye on Mat. The corruption was feeding off of the darkness inside Mat as much as he was off of the corruption, and they need to keep an eye on him, potentially foreshadowing his decision to stay back later in the episode. When Nynaeve returns, her basket is full of herbs. That's where she went. She went to get herbs to make medicine for Mat. Additionally, here we get a good look at Loial's travel satchel, and you notice it has a nice big thick pencil on there, a nod to the book readers who know that during his travels, he's taking notes. Now we cut to the sauna scene, which might be an actual nod to the way that the Aiel bathe. We'll find that out hopefully in future seasons. Additionally, speaking of Aiel, Megan says that they're crossing, that they've been seen on this side of the spine of the world, showing that they have already started their hunt for he who comes with the dawn. She also mentions that there are ships disappearing in the west, which is a clear nod to the Sanshan, potentially setting them up to be a major player in season 2. Moraine says to Megan that her informant network is getting better, a clear nod to the eyes and ears in the book. Additionally, Megan says, well, how did the Trollocs get to the Two Rivers? This is interesting because in the books, they get there via the Waygate and Manetheren. However, as shown later in this episode, it requires channeling to open a Waygate. So how did the Trollocs get there? Well, maybe it was a Forsaken. Finally, in this scene is that little twig of red flowers, a nod to how the eyes and ears of the Yellow Aja would use yellow flowers as a signal. The room that Egwene and Perrin are in has herbs and plants everywhere, and additionally, small detail, it even has some kind of a strange concoction hanging from the chandeliers. When talking about Perrin's torture, Egwene says that his eyes turned golden, not yellow, but golden. Golden eyes, a clear nod to the book. Additionally, when she starts saying that he has this weird connection with the wolves, that is when Moraine says, stop, don't tell anyone, even other sisters may want to harm him. I think this is a clear nod to Elias Machera from the books, and potentially even foreshadowing that he might be there later in another season. In Moraine's room, before her meeting with Siuan Sanche, you notice that she takes off her serpent ring. This is showing that both her and Siuan are going to meet each other as women, not as Aes Sedai. Also, you'll notice in later scenes that Siuan is also not wearing her great serpent ring. Lan mentions that she masked the bond. While she kind of plays it off as, hey, this is a break, this is actually more of a clear nod to the books and saying that, hey, this is going to be a portion where this is going to be too intimate and I don't want my warder to feel this. Interesting note, notice that Moraine closes the picture frame ter'angreal before channeling. I think there's something there, and I'll get to it in my theory video coming out tomorrow. Through the portal, Moraine enters a reed hut very similar to the one that Siuan Sanche lived in as a child. Additionally, sitting on the bed is Siuan Sanche, but she is doing something. She's weaving a castanet. There are a couple lines in this scene that Siuan says that I think are particularly good. One being, skin me and salt me, a clear nod to the books and some of the sayings that she would say. Additionally, she says, so much for the Amyrlin not being neutral and not having favorites. It's a clear nod to the Amyrlin in the book, who is supposed to be of all Ajas and of none. Moraine also says, when do we ever follow the rules? This is a clear nod to A New Spring, where we found out that, yeah, they played a lot of tricks and they got into a lot of mischief when they were novices and accepted. Moraine's line about the prophecies being 3,000 years old and translated by hundreds of different Aes Sedai is a clear nod to actual religious texts in our real world, as many religious scholars as well as scientists have debates on what the actual meaning or even the actual words are, depending on how many times they've been translated. Lan mentions that Mat is already day drinking. I think we can all agree that's the Matchroom Coffin we know and love. The lines builder and glory to the builder that Moraine says when meeting Loyal are actually nods to Shienaran customs when greeting Ogier. Additionally, while we never hear hasty humans, Loyal does speak on the haste at which he was encouraged to respond to Moraine's message. When in the hall of the tower, Egwene stops and ponders in front of the Amyrlin seat and asks about it being confusing. I don't think the confusing part, I think that's more for non-book readers, but book readers, that's foreshadowing. Think about it. What happens later in Saladar? When Egwene and Nynaeve do get to meet Siuan Sanche, she is still in the role of Amyrlin. But note, she's not wearing all the jewelry, she's wearing very little makeup and a very simple dress and slippers. This is to put Nynaeve and Egwene in a more comfortable state and hopefully have them opening up to her suggestion. Wonderful little tactic there. After stating that Nynaeve is the most powerful channeler they've seen in 1,000 years, she also looks at Egwene and says, your bravery and spark brought my fallen daughter's great serpent rings home, giving a nod to, yes, girl, we know you can channel. Lan's outfit on Moraine's balcony is actually a very good subtle nod to the duality of Saidar and Saidin, as you see the lighter gray and darker gray fabric interweaving back and forth. In Moraine's trial, when she steps forward to kiss her mother's ring, you see that in the center of those colored tiles is actually the flame of Tar Valon. It also bears repeating that Moraine subtly changes the oath to sound more like a wedding vow. After the sentence has been passed and Moraine has taken her oath, she is told to face her sisters and depart the tower. As they're turning around, Megan looks at her and gives her a slight shake of the head before turning around, showing that she knows that this was Moraine's doing and that it is just to avoid having to stay inside the tower. Upon arriving at the Waygate, you'll notice that Loyal has 3 sticks sticking out of his satchel. Those are probably the torches that they're about to use. should have been a nod to us that they're getting ready to go into the ways. When asked about what will happen to the people that are not the dragon, Moraine pauses. And she does that. She looks like she's about to talk a couple times. She's trying to find a way, she's trying to figure out what she can say without breaking the three ofs or finding a way around them, and finally settles on, we cannot know for certain. We will not know until that moment comes. Inside the ways, it is dark and wet, but I don't think that it's just dark and wet there. I think that this is some kind of an ichor all over everything, and it looks extremely similar to the corruption of the Dark One. All right, guys, so that's all the Easter eggs I was able to find in this episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon if you're notified whenever I come out with new content. Additionally, leave me a comment if you found any other small details in here that I didn't. Until the next time I see you, have a wonderful day.